Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to totally unpack the rigorous, real-world, five-step process of digital forensics. We've all seen those Hollywood hacking myths, right? Where someone in a dark hoodie furiously types on a keyboard for maybe 30 seconds, dramatically whispers, "I'm in," and boom, the case is solved. Well, the meticulous reality of securing an actual digital crime scene is completely different. It's incredibly systematic and, frankly, a whole lot more fascinating. We are going to break down exactly how digital investigators pull the truth out of silicon. Let's start with a really crucial concept. Volatile data disappears the exact moment a machine is powered off. Think of it like a criminal leaving a perfect footprint in melting snow. If you don't capture it immediately, it simply vanishes forever. We're talking about running processes, temporary network connections, unencrypted passwords just sitting there in memory. If investigators pull the plug too early, all of that critical context is permanently erased. Okay, so our roadmap for this explainer takes us from the chaotic discovery of a cyber incident all the way to a high-stakes legal showdown. We're going to cover identification, preservation, collection, examination, and finally reporting. Let's dive right in. Step 1 is identification, which is all about securing the digital scene. We kick things off by mapping out all the potential evidence sources, from traditional endpoints right down to IoT devices. But crucially, before anyone touches anything, we absolutely must confirm legal authority. Usually, this means getting a search warrant, because if you act without authorization, literally everything you find becomes legally inadmissible. Now, investigators face a literal ticking clock, which is actually defined by the RFC 3227 standard. You have to collect the most volatile data first before powering anything down. So the order goes like this. You start with the CPU registers, then you move to RAM and swap files, followed by the network state. Only after all that is secure do you move to persistent data like hard disks and backups. It's really a highly choreographed dance against time. Moving on to phase 2, preservation, and maintaining an unbroken chain of custody. Once the scene is triaged, we enter a phase that has a zero margin for error. One wrong move, one altered file, and a criminal could walk free. So what does this actually mean? Well, the most critical element here is the chain of custody. That is a documented, unbroken record of exactly who handled the evidence, when they handled it, and exactly what they did to it. Any gap, and I mean any gap, in this meticulous documentation can utterly destroy a case in court. This is exactly why physical evidence, like a hard drive, is carefully logged, sealed in evidence tape, and stored in anti-static bags far, far away from magnetic fields or extreme temperatures. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually prove you haven't tampered with the digital files during all this? You use hardware or software write blockers. These prevent any accidental data modification to the original media. Then, you use cryptographic hashing. By computing MD5 or SHA-256 hashes on the original evidence and then doing the same on the forensic copies made by tools like FTK Imager, investigators mathematically prove their copy is bit for bit identical to the source. If even one single pixel in a hidden image changes, the hash changes, alerting the investigator immediately. All right, phase 3 is collection and acquisition. This is where we actually extract the volatile data we've so carefully preserved. We basically have two main approaches here. First, there's live forensics. This uses specialized tools like WinPam or Lime to capture running RAM, active processes, and live network connections while the system is still powered on. It's risky for sure, but absolutely necessary to catch running malware or grab encryption keys. Then we have deadbox forensics. This is the more traditional method, where you safely power the device down to image the persistent storage, essentially making a perfect clone of the hard drive. Depending on the incident, an investigator might actually need to do both. And hey, we aren't just looking at traditional hard drives anymore. Our digital lives are everywhere, right? Investigators use tools like Wireshark on packet captures to reconstruct network communications and trace data exfiltration. They rely on platforms like Cellebrite to extract deleted SMS messages, app data, and location history right off mobile devices. And for the cloud, they pull authentication logs and massive activity trails directly from AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, using legal subpoenas and API access. Phase 4 is examination and analysis. Time to connect all those digital dots. See, even if a user empties the recycle bin, the data actually remains in unallocated space on the drive. We actively hunt for it using file carving tools like Foremost and Scalpel. This is where it gets really interesting. Investigators build what's called a super timeline by correlating file system timestamps, specifically your MAC times, which stands for modified, accessed, and created, along with Windows event logs, browser history, and obscure Windows registry hives like the shim cache. Analysts can essentially rebuild the exact chronological sequence of an attacker's actions. They can see exactly when a malicious file was dropped, the second it was opened, and everything it did. But you have to remember, this is a two-way fight. Attackers are highly aware of these forensic techniques, so they actively push back using anti-forensics. They use tactics like time stomping to fake file creation dates. They deploy scripts specifically for log wiping. They hide malicious code inside innocent-looking images through steganography, and they use heavy encryption. They are literally setting digital booby traps and dead ends for the investigator. So this brings up a massive, massive question. With adversaries actively covering their tracks, wiping logs, and running dynamic malware in the shadows, how do you actually prove who is sitting behind the keyboard? Putting a face or at least a specific identity to a digital crime is hands down one of the most difficult challenges in the entire forensic process. Well, analysts solve this puzzle through a process called attribution. They carefully map the attacker's specific behaviors, their lateral movements, and indicators of compromise, things like malicious IP addresses or specific malware hashes. They take all that and compare it against global threat intelligence databases and the MITRE ATT&CK framework. By comparing these unique digital fingerprints to known adversary groups, they can confidently attribute the breach to a specific syndicate or state-sponsored actor. And that brings us to the final step, Phase 5, reporting and presentation, or, as it's often known, surviving the courtroom. All of this incredibly deep technical work culminates right here. To survive that level of legal scrutiny, the findings must be 100% reproducible. That means if an opposing examiner uses industry-standard tools like Autopsy, Plazo, Volatility, or Axiom and follows the investigator's documented steps, they must reach the exact same conclusion. No room for guesswork whatsoever. Everything is meticulously documented in a comprehensive forensic report detailing the methodology, the tools used, the evidence examined, and the entire timeline. Ultimately, forensic examiners are frequently called up as expert witnesses. They have to translate all of this dense, complex technical jargon into plain, understandable language for a judge and a jury, all while enduring some pretty intense cross-examination. And it leaves us with a really compelling final thought to consider. In a world where investigators possess the tools to recover almost anything, but adversaries are simultaneously mastering anti-forensics to hide their tracks, is your digital footprint ever truly gone? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a powerful new perspective on the invisible, high-stakes world of digital forensics.